A lovely viewer named Marie shared this old scone recipe with me last year. She first found it in a Sunday newspaper many years ago after it won a blue ribbon at the Sydney Royal Easter Show, baked by a country CWA lady. Marie has been making these scones for decades, and ever since she kindly passed the recipe on to me, I've been making them regularly at work because they're just beautiful. They always receive wonderful feedback and they've become one of my favourite scone recipes. And the other thing I'm excited about sharing with you today is I think I've found the best gluten-free flour I've ever worked with, and it's not Caputo, and it makes these beautiful scones with no aftertaste at all. Now the recipe says to sift the dry ingredients several times, and several to me means at least 5 times. You'll need 2 cups of self-raising flour, and a cup in Australia is equivalent to about 150 to 170 gram. And I'm going to weigh this for you, and in the recipe on the website I'll put the gram measurements as well. And when I sift several times, I find it easier just using 2 pieces of baking paper as opposed to 2 bowls. I add 1 level teaspoon of baking powder, 2 teaspoons of icing sugar, 1 level teaspoon of salt, and 1 level tablespoon of caster sugar. And then simply sift all these ingredients several times. I've read in the past that ladies that entered the show used to sift the dry ingredients 10 times, but 5 is plenty. And the 5th time I sift it is into the bowl. And then I just simply make a well in the centre with a knife. Again, I'll leave the mill measurements in the recipe on the website, but add 1/3 cup of thickened cream, 1/2 cup of milk, and 1/4 cup of half milk, half cold water. And using your knife, just stir that together until a dough is formed. So I've got my oven preheating to 225 degrees fan force, which is 245 degrees conventional, so a really hot oven. The recipe actually says 250 to 260 degrees conventional. However, I think ovens back then were a little not as hot as they were today. And then I just lightly flour my bench and tip the dough onto the bench. Now this is an interesting part. The recipe says to knead well. And you know, if you look at a lot of scone recipes, including others that I have on the site, it says to handle as least as possible. But just recently I was going to enter a scone competition, but I was away in New Zealand, and these were the scones I was going to use for the competition. In the rules it said knead the scone well, which produces a finer texture. Now the recipe says if you're a bit heavy-handed with the liquid ingredients and your dough is too soft, add a little bit more sifted flour. But you just want to knead it, push it gently, fold it over, quarter turn it until it comes together, and you'll feel the dough changing a little bit. Not for long, just for about 20 or 30 seconds. And that's enough. Now I've got a 3.5 centimetre scone cutter here, and it's also 3.5 centimetre in height. And so what I'm going to do, I usually get about 10 scones out of this. Marie says that she usually doubles the recipe because they freeze wonderfully. And so when I look at it, I just get the scone in line with underneath the rim of my scone cutter. And what I like to do to ensure an even sort of rise, or while the tops look nice, is just very lightly run a rolling pin over the top. And the recipe says to lightly grease a baking tray. I just put a bit of greaseproof or baking paper on the tray. And as you probably all know, just straight up and down. And look at that, you can already see the layers of the scone. And place them on the tray. And don't touch them. Have them close, like 2 centimetres apart, but don't touch them. Don't have the scones touching, I mean. Whenever I make these at work, people comment on how lovely and light they are. And gently knead any leftover dough. This is a tiny little one. That's a little taste tester. And then you can brush with a little bit of water or milk, just lightly over the top. And these take 12 minutes, that's all. 12 minutes in that very hot oven, and they will double in size. And I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And that tiny little taste tester, which will probably be very overcooked after 12 minutes. Oh well, into the oven. And I pop them in the middle shelf. And gently close the door and put my timer on for 12 minutes. And if you can hear somebody in the background, that's just my beautiful mum. There you go. I had to cut it short by 40 seconds because they were cooking a little bit too quickly. My mum is so keen to have one. We've got all the jams ready, haven't we, Mum? So we just have to wait for them to cool down a little bit so I can actually cut them. But look at them. They are so light. They've got brown on the bottom, brown on the top. And, you know, this is how a scone should be. A few are lopsided, but to me that looks pretty good. Do you think, Mum?
Yes.
And what I find with batches of scones is you get a few really good looking ones. And I swear the ladies used to cook a couple of batches and pick out 4 of the best to submit to the shows.
Yeah.
Now, if you like a soft scone top, just get a clean towel and cover them and let them cool like that, and that'll give you a soft top. But if you like them a little bit firmer on the top, just leave them uncovered, and I'm going to leave these for at least 10 minutes. So it's been about 5 minutes, if that, and I'm just going to transfer them here. Now, apparently for a scone, you shouldn't cut it. You should break it apart. And so what I find best, if you look for a natural seam in it, you know, a natural line, and put your thumbs there and gently pull it apart, you should get a beautiful scone. And see the fine texture of that? Such a great recipe.
Well, you don't have that.
And you want apricot jam?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, apricot jam's one of my favourites. I'm really curious to see what you think of these scones. You've eaten a lot of scones in your life, hey Mum?
I like that.
Hey Mum and Dad, thank you very much for being patient. Mum and Dad, what do you think?
Yeah, they're great. Yeah.
They're fabulous.
They're nice and crisp and beautiful.
And that's what's left. Good scone, mate?
Very good scone.
That's good. Good scone, Dad?
Great scone.
Mum?
Yes.
Good
light,
scone?
Light, all the way up to
Yeah. How many did you have, Mum?
3.
Unreal.
Don't tell me so.
One day, you will be chubby.
And now for the flour. And I don't know about you, but I find a lot of gluten-free flours, when you make things like scones and cockles, for instance, have that really distinct pasty aftertaste, like a baking powder aftertaste. So how I happened upon this flour is that a viewer recently mentioned to me it's such a shame that FG Roberts are no longer available on the supermarket shelves. And they'd been around for 89 years, and that led me down a bit of a rabbit hole, and I researched, and it turns out this company called Gluten Free World actually took over the FG Roberts, and they sell this flour at the moment online in Australia only, or you can pick it up if you live in Melbourne. I ordered one of everything because I wanted to try it all, and I was really surprised the postage was only like $24 for over 5 kilos of flour. So the first thing I did was make a batch of scones, and I was so impressed with the flour because there was no aftertaste. They tasted just delicious. And then I made, with the plain flour, a batch of cockles. I'd previously made a gluten-free batch of cockles just using your regular supermarket gluten-free flour, and they had that aftertaste, but using this flour there was none of that aftertaste. Then I tried the brown bread flour, and that made a lovely sandwich bread, which was super fresh and beautiful toasted. If you have a go at that, I recommend not cutting it till the next day so it has a really good chance of settling. And then I used the traditional bread flour more recently, like a couple of weeks ago, and I made a batch of coffee scrolls, and they were absolutely delicious. So delicious that we all demolished them before I had a chance to take a photo. So look, I would never try to sell you anything, and I'm not making anything out of this, but if you want to try a really good flour, I highly recommend you try this one. And you know, the owner is a chef and a celiac, and he ran a gluten-free bakery and cafe successfully in Melbourne for 25 years. So that says something. And also I rang him up and I just told him how impressed I was with it, and he kindly offered a one-off discount for anyone that wants to try it, and I'll put that in the video description and also on the website. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy this scone recipe, and I hope to see you again soon.